Okay.
Yep.
Hi, this is Mary Keurig of Frontrunners Innovate Magazine, and with me today is Patrick Kuwana, and Patrick is in Johannesburg, and I have tapped Patrick to come forward and share his expertise and wisdom that exists in Africa and outside of Africa, and working with businesses, entrepreneurs on doing business with Africa, but also with African businesses in general as they move forward through pandemic and try to get themselves together to do business, maybe in the new way. I'm not sure how it's going to impact you guys. You're going to tell me. But as we move forward in hopefully what the new normal will be, Patrick. So first, share us a little bit about your background. How did you come to do what you're doing now with business?
Yeah, Mary, it's actually very interesting because I am originally from a small country called Zimbabwe, which falls as the very last country in the list. I moved to Johannesburg in 1994. I am actually a computer engineer by background. So my initial career was in the IT space. Worked for a number of multinational firms, Hewlett Packard, Oracle, Computer Sciences Corporation, in various executive roles. And in 2005, I decided to leave the corporate nest and ventured out on myself, started my first business, which was a small investment consulting business. And through that, we ended up doing a number of ventures, mainly in the sports and small sports information media space. And then from there, quite a strong passion around seeing the economic development of Africa, and just having traveled across Africa, seeing the potential of Africa, I just got to the place where I started asking myself the question, as somebody who has had a lot of international, multinational experience, but somebody who can see the potential in the continent, what is that next thing that I needed to do? And I think venturing into the sort of entrepreneurship, development, incubation, and then eventually into the world has basically just been the journey that I've taken.
That's fantastic. I would say, we were having this conversation about technology just a few minutes ago, and we know how important that is for all countries right now. But you listed several spaces that you all work in terms of how to kind of grow and boost up these particular areas of need. Could you share a little bit about that? I know health and education were two of them. Share with us a little bit about what you dig into there.
Yeah, Mary, we strongly believe that one of the big growth areas that Africa can take advantage of is the whole innovation and digital space, and the whole how digital and technology can be the platform that quickly bridges the divide in Africa in terms of giving people who typically haven't had access before and give them access. Because I think for Africa, one of our biggest constraints has just been getting a critical mass of people to have access to the critical elements to enable them to jump onto the economic bandwagon. So for us, when we sort of look at things like financial inclusion, fintech, the rise of mobile phones in Africa, I mean, that's been a complete revolution on the African continent, where there are more people carrying mobile phones than there are computers and ordinary phones, and therefore the mobile phone has become that gadget that really brings people to a point where they can participate. So for us, looking at things like fintech, looking at things like edutech, education tech, how do we get, education services out to people via technology on their mobile phones. You look at things like health tech. Again, our typical health infrastructure is not as robust as your typical Western world, but with technology, we can easily begin to provide certain services that can bring health services to a wider range of people. And likewise, agriculture is one of those big things. I mean, Africa's very foundation is built upon agriculture, and looking at smart agricultural products from a technology perspective is a very quick way that we can also bring a lot more inclusivity in terms of bringing smaller scale farmers into the whole economic cycle. So technology is one of those things that really excites us, that we are constantly looking to see how do we adapt technology for the African market, because again, we have very unique circumstances that we have to deal with that are potentially not necessarily in the Western world.
Right. Power, energy, connectivity. I know all of those sorts of things do hamper certain areas of Africa that make it really challenging to, for all of this, for health and, education, service delivery. You mentioned smart tech. So that's also on the plate then, because we look at that here as being something that people are now, smartphones and, wireless everything, around your house. I mean, it's just amazing what we can do now. Is that on the plate for you guys? I mean, you mentioned that sort of in passing. So is that something that you guys are looking at?
Yeah, it's certainly on the cards, because again, the interesting thing about Africa is in some places in Africa, especially here in South Africa, you find the best of the first world and the worst of the third world all intermixed in one. And therefore one has to be very aware of how we are also taking forward the smart technology in the first world areas that we have available to us. And that's all about, again, connectivity, but it's all about the infrastructure and the technology that will enable the lesser places to be able to hook into that and to be able to get the services that they need to be able to do what they need to do. So if you look at it, even, something as basic as a rural farmer, being able to get information that gives them, the latest statistics in terms of what the sale by figures are looking like for their cattle. Something as simple as that. We're starting to look at ways of, how do we, really use, for example, livestock as a real financial asset for them who don't necessarily have bank accounts, but who have an asset that actually has value, and that could actually be an asset that could be used to create real wealth, if only it's recognized within a system as being a real tradable asset that has value, that is not maybe necessarily sitting in a bank account somewhere.
Right. It is a whole different.
So it's looking at all of these different things. Yeah. Absolutely.
Tell me now, under Transformational Entrepreneur, that is the name of your business. You're the CEO of that. So when you're working with clients, what do the clients look like? Are they entrepreneurs? Are they government? Are they NGOs? Give us sort of a snapshot of what your business looks like.
Okay, so there are essentially two main aspects of our business. The one is a transformational consulting arm, and within that transformational consulting arm, our major focus is actually looking at economic trends, looking at how we can leverage those economic trends by helping entrepreneurs take advantage of those trends. So we almost like a transformational think tank that is giving advisory services to different businesses. We even touch on government people at times, but it's almost like a sky high view of what's happening in Africa, what's happening in different industries, and beginning to advise and provide consultancy services around that. And that's really coming out of, you know, one of the things that we have built up is a arm that does a lot of turnaround work, literally taking businesses that are, you know, struggling, businesses that are on the down, or, you know, going through a downturn, and we help literally turn them around and accelerate them forward from. So that's the one arm. And then within C3 Capital, which is more the investment arm, and the two of them work very much in conjunction. This is where we are now really looking at where is the opportunity for us to invest. And when I talk about investment, it actually comes in a number of ways. It could be financial investment, but it could actually even be investment in terms of our know-how and our skill and our competence to be able to invest that in the business and use some of our turnaround abilities without necessarily asking the businesses to pay for it. But we actually then enter into these risk reward mechanisms and models where instead of being paid money for it, we actually end up taking equity in those businesses, and we might very well combine that with some, with some financial capital if that is also required. So it's a bit of a mix in terms of how we go about doing it. The critical thing for us is not just about putting money. We actually probably value even more the skill and the wisdom that we want to bring to the table, because that's what we really believe will bring that accelerator that we are looking for in the businesses that we're strategically working with.
Yes, we were talking before, you mentioned the African Digital Impact Fund, and that's something that you're heading into. I assume that's on the second half of your business that you just spoke about, that where you're maybe looking to do a raise and create a scenario where you can, help some startups or some founders in Africa do some growth inside their own businesses. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have just finished putting together what we are calling the an African Digital Impact Fund, and we have actually gone into that with 3 other partners, 2 of them very well-established private equity firms in South Africa, and we have come together as a joint venture to establish the fund manager, which we are obviously going to be a big part of. And the African Digital Investment Fund is literally looking to invest in businesses in those critical areas that I spoke about, the financial area, the agricultural area, the health tech and education tech, but understanding that we are looking at returns that are just beyond financial returns. A big thing for us is how do we establish a vehicle that can really contribute towards establishing a strong platform for economic growth for the countries in Africa? How do we establish a platform through which many other businesses will be able to do what they need to do to be able to achieve the potential that they should achieve? So as much as we obviously look at financial returns, we look at returns across many different multiple areas, and even the way that we have structured the actual fund itself. It's the initial fund is closing out at 120 million US dollars. So it's about 1.8 billion rand in sort of equivalent terms. So that's sort of the scale of what we are looking to get off the ground, and we're pretty much at that point where we're very close to doing that.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that. That's amazing. Really big impact I see that having, and I know that you guys would do your due diligence to make sure, whatever you invest in is going to have that sort of circular return to the communities that they serve. So I was going to ask you what types of businesses you were looking for, but you've given me at least the broad brushstroke of the fact that it's fintech and education and health and maybe smart tech and in the ag space as well. So we do know those are the spaces primarily that you guys are looking at. You mentioned that you wanted to be a trusted channel for a lot of this type of information flow back and forth. And for me, that sounds like it's the business community, but it's all the different parts and pieces that make, an area work, whether that's government, that's NGOs, that's charities, and all of the above. So, what does that mean to you as being a trusted channel? You tell me.
Well, Mary, in terms of that, if I look at the entire ecosystem that we are talking about here, because I strongly believe in collaboration, and we even use this term a lot, co-creation, where we work with different parties to be able to construct what we believe will work the best. So on one hand, if you look at the value that we are looking to bring, but the value that we're also looking to co-create, one element of the ecosystem is potentially even other international businesses, entrepreneurs who are perhaps already developing certain technologies that we could be partnering them with African businesses, and therefore through that we actually get that accelerated effect. But at the same time, it also gives an inroad for those international businesses to also find the right trusted partners in Africa for them to also access the African market, but also access the underlying philosophy of impact in Africa that we are carrying behind our vision. Similarly, it could even be international impact investment firms that are now beginning to look at, well, how do we make a play into Africa? And we want to be that partner where we can also be working with them, understanding exactly what their key investment criteria is. And again, if there's a meeting of minds in terms of what we are doing and what they're looking to do, again, that level of collaboration brings in that acceleration in terms of being able to get things done. And I think maybe the last sort of area that I've also been looking at quite closely is Africa has received billions and billions of dollars of aid money over the years. And, there are big philanthropists who've put money into Africa. They're big, Christian aid organizations, development organizations that have put money into Africa. And as much as I believe there's a space for emergency aid, I think aid can also become something that creates dependency. And if we begin to structure a lot of that typical aid money and philanthropy money more into a impact investment type of structure that looks to give financial return, but at the same time multiply that money internally within Africa, so that part of what comes out of that money is still the fulfillment of the social need that money would have normally have been sent as philanthropy, but at the same time, it's now producing a real multiplier cycle within Africa, rather than just money coming into Africa and just being used for aid purposes, rather than for a multiplier impact investment structure.
Patrick, you're just full of information. I've been taking notes the whole time you've been talking, and I've got like 2 pages right now. But I think to me, the gems, the takeaways here are phenomenal. That A, you're the trusted channel. And if you're in business anywhere in Africa and seriously looking at creating some impact, I think you need to talk to Patrick. But the other thing is you're creating that investment arm that's going to mean something to a lot of people who've been working for years trying to get something off the ground that really speaks to a need. And I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit afterwards. The other thing is people coming into Africa from the United States or anywhere else, Europe, wherever they may be, that are trying to do business and trying to create impact or help to create impact in Africa. I could see the value in communicating with you and your team to see what they might be able to do that makes it easier for them to move into the right spaces where it's going to make the most difference, and especially if technology is attached to it. Because I think that, you know, we're seeing what's happening all over the world with technology, and even in Africa, I keep getting told that Kenya seems to have it covered pretty much, that they're the up and coming technology spot in Africa. And so consequently, I'm seeing a lot of dollars going that way, you know, I'm seeing a lot of investment heading that way. So what we need to do is, you know, not necessarily just replicate what's going on in Kenya, because we all know that not every country is just like that one inside of Africa. Every country's got their own culture a bit different from everybody else. So I think there's a lot of takeaways here, and I appreciate that. But as we end up, I'd love for you to give any advice that you would give to businesses, startups there in Africa that are looking for coming out of this pandemic, and what one bit of advice might you give them if they're looking for resetting their values, their vision? What piece of advice might you give them, even if they're looking for funding? And those people in outside of Africa looking to bring their solutions to your door. So give me, if you will, advice on both those ends. I really put you on the spot with that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's what I do. Have at it. You know, Zoom has not been our friend today. I'll be honest. It's been freezing us up, but go ahead.
Well, let me maybe start off with painting a picture for both, and then I will then hone into for both sets. I think the overall picture that's worthwhile people considering is that 60% of Africa's population is under 25 years old. Africa is the youngest population in the world, and that speaks to the potential in terms of people, the potential in terms of skill, and just the potential in terms of what we can bring as a people. And that's such a strong aspect of Africa today. If you look at just the resources that we have available to us that are still largely latent resources, latent potential that still needs to be tapped out of Africa, it's enormous. As much as we've gone through, you know, our political challenges and all the other risk challenges that we've faced, the main thing is there is a well of potential in Africa. So from that point, when I'm talking to African entrepreneurs, the main thing I say to them is, you are potentially sitting on the biggest potential in the world, because a lot of other markets have gone so far in tapping a lot of what exists within them, whereas we are almost like a green field of potential. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface in terms of what we can do as a continent. We have 1.2 billion people on the continent. That's a 1.2 billion market. And therefore, again, when I look at Africa, I say to myself, if we develop the right minded entrepreneurs who are not just wanting to try and imitate what somebody else is doing elsewhere, but who are thinking through what are the African problems and what are those solutions that we can bring to the table that are unique, that might bring complementary international technology or know-how, but let's think, what do we need? Because there are many things that we need on this continent, and that market is vast. For your international typical business person, whether it's somebody who has a business and a product, somebody who is looking to invest, my message to them is pretty similar. Africa is teeming with potential, but Africa is such a diverse cultural space. And therefore, it's really critical to be able to partner with the right people and not try to do it alone. Because in doing it alone, some of the pitfalls that we've seen over time is people who typically come in wanting to do it alone, they miss some of the cultural nuances, and that ends up typically breaking a lot of the deals that they're trying to do, or they come in with a mindset of a formula that they've made to work internationally, but that formula needs to be reconstructed for the African market.
No one size fits all.
Yeah. Absolutely, no one size fits all. And then I think lastly, it's just important to make sure that you get the right trusted partner who has the right credentials, so that Africa becomes a place of safety and not a place of risk. And I think that's part of what we are really trying to get the message out there, that I think the narrative around Africa, especially to the investment world, has always been, very risky place. Yes, there is a level of risk, but at the same time, I believe there's a level of exponentially higher returns, and that risk can be mitigated if the right deals are done with the right people in the right markets.
I think we found that too. We do some projects in Africa, and a lot of our league members also do projects in Africa, and found that to be true. That really having someone in country that is your trusted partner to help you work things through, all the hoops that are necessary to get through, whether that be government or whatever it may be. If it's a project worthwhile, you're probably going to have to tap government at some point, and just to get all the paperwork done. But having somebody there who knows the hoops and understands that, like you say, the nuances is really critical to make sure that you're hitting the mark on that, and you're not risking a lot of money wasted, that kind of thing. So thank you, Patrick. This has been a great conversation. I can see all kinds of possibilities that we can do with you from a business standpoint, because I just feel like what you're doing, that the vision is right and on track with what we're doing. And I hope that innovators will pay attention to what you're saying as far as inside country and outside, in terms of what you're aiming for with the impact, because it really is all about creating that impact. And sometimes it takes dollars, and sometimes it takes just business and compassion always. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.